Okay, so it looks like it is start time. So I will go ahead and start. I'll start by introducing myself if I haven't met you yet. I'm Elisa Sloss. I am Vice President of Health Market and Dietitians at Hy-Vee. Can you guys all hear me okay? Can someone give me a thumbs up in the chat section? I will keep going. Okay. So I was really honored when Annette reached out to me and asked me to talk a little bit about career advancement and some of the path that I've taken throughout my career, because it's a little untraditional, a little outside of the box. And so she thought that I would be interesting to you guys. And there was a lot of interest in the last session on career advancement. So I can keep this, pretty informal. I just wrote down some notes. Going to talk about definitely my least favorite subject, which is talking about myself. So just feel free to chime in at any time if you guys have a question or you'd like me to elaborate on anything at all. So like I said, I've had a pretty unique and untraditional career. So I thought I would kind of take you from my journey from graduating to where I am now and kind of share some lessons that I've learned along the way, because there's been a lot of lessons. And one of the first things I want to start with is by throwing out a challenge. And if my Hy-Vee team is out there, they're probably shaking their heads right now because I love to throw out a good challenge. So the first one I want to throw out there is, if you're really serious about growing and advancing in retail, to truly think outside the box. Challenge yourself to take on roles that you would have never dreamed in a million years that you would have. And that's definitely me. So I just think about college, Lisa, thinking about where I would be today. And this is not something that I had ever dreamed of doing throughout my career, but it has become one of my favorite things that I've ever done throughout the Hy-Vee world. So, just being surrounded by so many amazing dietitians, I've started to realize that we all have a lot of traits that are very similar that actually translate really, really well into the retail world. So I kind of wrote down some things that I've noticed on my team and working with dietitians outside of Hy-Vee that we all really have in common. And that first thing is definitely organization. I always smile when I get an email from a dietitian versus someone else I work with, because my dietitians have short, concise notes. They put in bullet points. They have lists of follow-ups that they need from me. And they really are just organized in everything they do, from their schedules to organizing their days. And I really, really appreciate that and admire that and think that it translates so well into the retail world. So that is one thing that I think every dietitian is very organized and very capable of doing. Next, dietitians are hardworking. I mean, we outwork everyone. I think that people who work with us are always amazed about all we can do and all we can accomplish and how hard we work. Retail is so fast-paced. When you just take a second to celebrate a success, if you've had a great month, a great week, or a great promotion, you have to start thinking, pat yourself on the back, and then start thinking about, all right, I got to comp this next year. What am I going to do that's even bigger and even better? So being hardworking is so important for advancing yourself in the retail world. Next, I think dietitians are very strategic and very analytic, which also lends itself really well to the retail space. You have to be able to analyze sales, look at the trends, and then translate all of that data and information into a strategic plan. So I think just naturally, of all the classes we've taken throughout our careers and everything we do in the healthcare world, that lends itself really well to retail as well. And such an important skill set to have. Next, we're goal-oriented. Every time I do job reviews or talk to a dietitian, they have 5 goals that they want to hit this next year. And I really appreciate that about retail dietitians. Next, I think it's always good to have a little sense of healthy competition. And that's also super important in retail as well. You have to be competitive. I think that it helps drive you. It helps set those goals and helps set you apart. And then next, you have to be a smart and fast learner, because you never have to stop learning in retail as well. So you can't tell me that anyone who can pass organic chemistry can't figure out how to get a sales increase, because they go hand in hand. Neither one of those things are easy, but anybody who's capable of that is capable of being successful in retail. So just really challenge yourself to not limit your thought process to a traditional role. I love that Phil Lempert put out that challenge for everybody that we need a dietitian CEO. Totally agree. I hope that there was definitely one or two of you that wrote that down, and now that's your new goal, is to become CEO of your company. I will be your biggest cheerleader, and I think that that's a fantastic thing and something that we need in the dietitian world. So flipping gears a little bit and kind of starting to get into kind of where I've come from, my path to where I am today, I think really starts at graduation. So I applied for one internship that I was sure I was going to get. And then I had my 5-year plan laid out and everything was going to go well. Well, I ended up not actually getting that internship right away. So that's something that everybody's like, oh, really? When I tell them about that. But I am so happy I didn't get that internship. I think that, I allowed myself a day or two to pout about it, because you have your vision and you have your dream. And when things don't go well, sometimes that's hard to process. So then I started thinking about, okay, what's my plan B? What am I going to do next? And I knew that I wanted to be a Hy-Vee dietitian. So I spent time shadowing one when I was in college and just fell in love with the job. I loved everything that she was able to do in the community. I love the creativity and everything that she got to do on a daily basis. So I thought to myself, I should get some Hy-Vee experience. It's going to be a great resume builder. I'll learn a lot about the company, and then I'll be able to have a leg up when there is an opening. So I did some digging. I started to look around and saw that a brand new Hy-Vee was opening up in the town I grew up in. So I got excited, especially when I saw that there was one management role open, and it was for the health market. So instead of getting worried about that zero retail experience, or that I never managed people or even worked in a retail environment, I decided to go for it. So I put my resume together. That was pretty short and sweet. I had just graduated college, hadn't done a lot yet. And then I set up a time to go in and introduce myself in person, because I feel like that makes such a big impact versus an email, and talk to the store director. I had my pitch down. I was going to talk about how I had such a great nutrition background. I think it would be perfect for this role, and wasn't going to spend a lot of time on the details about how I really hadn't had spent a lot of time in retail, because I figured that's something you can learn. So ended up working out. He offered me the position, and then I went down and met with the dietitian in the store, because I knew that if I was going to accept this role, that the dietitian had to be amazing and someone that I could really shadow and learn from. To when I finish my internship, to get that next spot in that next role. And many of you probably know her. She is absolutely awesome. Her name is Stacy Loftus. And I was able to work with her for 9 months and learn as much as I could in that time frame. So I really thought that was a valuable time. So in between college and getting my first job, some of the biggest lessons I learned along the way is don't let setbacks get you down. I could have easily given up and decided to do something else, and many of the people I graduated actually did. So don't get discouraged, because you can come up with that plan B and sometimes even that plan C to get you to where you want to be. The next lesson I learned is don't focus on what you can't do. Focus on the skill set you have that could really be beneficial to that new role. And then you can learn everything else quickly. So those are the two biggest takeaways I kind of took from that period of my time. So next after that, I started my role as a health market manager, overseeing the natural, organic, and specialty foods area of the store. Again, with zero experience in grocery. But I remember walking in to that department head office on the first day and introducing myself and kind of getting those side-eye glances. Traditionally in Hy-Vee, you work your way up through the ranks. So you're a bagger, you're a cashier, you've worked in that department for years. And so I'm sure they were all thinking, who is this dietitian coming in to be a manager? And that's her first job at Hy-Vee. So I knew I had to blow them all away. And I learned also that day, just from hearing them all talk, I didn't speak retail language. So I had to learn a whole new skill set, not just inventory management, not just building displays, but I also had to learn what gross was and what's a TPR and what is RPM. And so there was a lot of things I had to catch on really fast and really quickly. I also decided that week that I had to be amazing. I couldn't blow this. I had to be really good. And so I had to dig in and learn quickly, because I wanted to make a name for myself in the area for when I finished my internship and I could get that first role at Hy-Vee as a dietitian in the area. I was in a really competitive group too, and some of the amazing Omaha dietitians that are still at the stores that when I started because they love their jobs so much. So I knew I had to get to know the store directors for when I was done with that internship. And I knew I had to network quickly and make a name for myself. So one of the first lessons I learned at Hy-Vee was if you want a sales increase, keep it simple, just sell more of what sells. So I dug in, I looked at every single section, and I saw that I sold a lot of drinks and a lot of snacks. I was in an area in town where there wasn't a lot of health market shoppers, your traditional health market shoppers. So I decided to sell more of what they were responding to and get it as many places as possible. So that ended up being one of my favorite parts of that job. In addition, there was a group of store directors in the area that each of those store directors were in charge of a department where they'd hold quarterly meetings each month. And so I was able to spend time with the store director who I really admired that oversaw the health markets for the Omaha group. And I always showed up early because I loved to ask her questions and get her feedback and learn as much as I could from her. And that ended up really paying off in the end because as soon as I was done with my internship, I called her and said, I would love to work with you and love to work in your store. I know you don't have an opening, but I would hope you think of me as soon as you do, or if there ever is an opening. And even though she didn't have a position, she ended up asking me to come in to talk with her about what I could do at the store and offered me a job. So that was how I got my first dietitian job at Hy-Vee, and I was ecstatic. So a couple of lessons and takeaways that I got from this role was just take a step back, breathe, and break it down into simple goals that you can achieve. So a big sales increase might seem overwhelming, but when you break it into a monthly goal or even weekly goals, it seems like it's so much more achievable and something that you can get done. And second, networking is so important. Take time to meet people, spend time with them, develop those relationships, because that is how I really got my first Hy-Vee dietitian job. And I probably wouldn't have gotten it that way had I not taken the time to get to know that store director. So next, we're at my dream job. So after the health market manager position, I finally landed my dream job and one of my favorite jobs I've ever held in Hy-Vee to date. So in this role, I got to work with a variety of clients in a variety of different ways. I got to be on the front line of where people really made their food decisions, and I loved it. I loved walking the aisles and talking to people and even just helping them make those easy choices on, hey, Elisa, which bread should I choose? I loved it. I helped them read labels, look for ingredient lists, and it was just one of my favorite jobs to date. I like to hold cooking classes. I saw a lot of clients in the pharmacy area, and it was just a really, really fun job and a really good group of people at the store. And I kind of came in with a different sense of street cred because I had been a manager before. And so I got to take part in a lot of really fun promotions in each of the departments. And they would always beg me to be part of their sales contest. So it was really fun. So after a couple of years, I kind of started to think, what's next? What can I do to move up in the company? And my friend Stacy Loftus, who had been at the old store, had become a dietitian supervisor. And I thought that would just be my next dream job and something that I was really interested in doing. So I got a hold of her and I asked her, hey, I'd love to sit down with you and learn more about your job and learn more about positions that might come open in the future. And so she took the time to sit down with me, talk through it, and I thought it just sounded like such an amazing opportunity. So I patiently waited for a year when she thought, a position might come open, and it finally did. So I took the time to immediately apply for the job and ended up getting an interview a week later and was really excited about that. So some of the lessons I learned being an in-store dietitian is how important it is to really talk about your goals. People don't know that you are interested in moving up and doing something different, they're not going to think of you when those positions come open. So I think it's important to share that you love your job, but you are open to new and exciting possibilities, and to let people know what those goals are so they can help you get there or get along the way. Next, I think it's really important to over-prepare for everything, especially if it's your dream job and your dream opportunity is there. So I spent a whole week just learning every interview question I could look up on the internet, coming up with answers, studying with our company, what the fundamentals were, because I heard that that was a possible interview question. I knew what our priorities were, and any Hy-Vee question I was asked, I was going to be able to rattle off. I also sat down with my store director and asked her about what are our company initiatives that are going on? What do we hope to roll out in the next year? And then jotted down some information about how dietitians could really integrate into all of those different areas. So I was interested in coming up with a packet of information that I could leave with my interview group, because I knew I was going to be up against some really tough competition of dietitians that had been around for a long time, and to really help build the program. So I wanted to leave them with some ideas that I could bring to the table and how I could contribute to the dietitian program, a strong program for the future. This ended up working. I got some good feedback, and I ended up getting offered the job. So I was really, really excited about that. So my next move was a dietitian supervisor. So this is my first experience moving into the corporate office. I was handed a pair of keys and a company car, and then I got a territory of 80 different stores that spanned all the way up to the Twin Cities in Minneapolis down to Springfield, Missouri. And I was able to travel around the company and visit with dietitians, help mentor the new dietitians, get them trained into the program, and then make store visits, to learn about all the fun stuff they were doing in the store and how I could help them out and answer some questions. During this, I got to join just an amazing group of dietitians who I was able to learn so much from. I also met my new boss, who I thought was just amazing, and became instantly bonded with her, and she became my mentor. She was able to really kind of take me under her wing, explain what life at corporate's like, and really kind of give me all of the unwritten laws and rules that you need to know to survive corporate world. And I am just so grateful that I was able to work with her for so long. I loved being on the other side of things. I loved being an in-store dietitian, but I found it fascinating to be able to develop programs, implement them, and really just see the other side of the business and what we could do and use the creativity I love to do. So one of the best lessons that I ever learned from holding this position was to find a mentor. Find someone who you look up to and really admire and would love to, mirror their career in the future, and just work with them. I think that that is such a valuable thing. And I've had so many great mentors along my career that I really attribute a lot to my success to. So I thought never in a million years I would ever leave my dietitian supervisor role, because I just absolutely loved it. Until one day I had a meeting pop up on my calendar from an executive in the company, which at that time never happened. So I came into the office not really knowing what to expect, sat down, and they told me that they were going to be doing some restructuring of the company, and that the health market department was growing so fast that they wanted to add supervisors to that team. And with my background, they saw 7 years ago that I had been a health market manager. They thought I would be a really good fit. Would I be interested in doing it? So after, a deep breath and kind of thinking about it, I decided that I would jump in and say yes, because I didn't want to be pegged as someone that didn't want to move up, didn't want to do more in the company, and that I, again, would figure it out. So I also happened to just finish a book on leadership that said, if you want to advance in your career, find the fastest growing department and jump on board, because that's going to be a great opportunity for growth. And it ended up working out. So again, I switched roles, came over to the health market supervisor team, and they were a phenomenal group of people. And I was definitely the worst one on the team. So I had to relearn everything. I didn't like that feeling. I don't like being the worst on the team. And they were all amazing, doing amazing things. So I dug in and learned as much as I could from them and mirrored what was working in their territories, and then reminded myself that I had a different skill set that I could really apply to become a better supervisor. So I leaned in on my nutrition background. I looked for food trends. I looked for what could we do next that nobody else was doing, and it ended up coming up with different sets that I could add to my health markets in my territory. So I developed an allergen-friendly set. I started looking at plant-based before plant-based was even as cool as it is today, I was starting to put in those type of sections and looking for grain-free snacks and what was next. And it ended up doing really well. And I started to have sales increases. And that opportunity really led me to being able to walk with executives in our company where they're like, what are you doing in Health Market? We're seeing really great results. I'd love to learn more. And so I got a lot of great exposure and able to work with a lot of really great people. So some of the lessons I learned from being a Health Market supervisor is to never turn down a growth opportunity. Even if it's scary, even if you feel like you aren't qualified, think about all the skills that make you an amazing dietitian and how you could apply it to that role. Also, stay positive. I could have gone really negative, but I chose to just dig in and learn and do as well as I could, and it really paid off. I also think that if you have a negative attitude, you're not usually one of the first people on the team that you want to work with if you're starting a new project. So just stay positive, and it will really pay off on your mindset. And then I also learned important is always make your boss look good and be a good teammate. So if you're helping your boss out and your boss looks good, they're going to want you to be that go-to person. And there's someone they're going to want on your team that is so valuable, they don't want to lose. I started getting invited to meetings. I started attending conferences in my boss's place, and I kind of established myself as that next natural leader, and it really paid off. And don't get me wrong, it's extra work, but it ends up being worth it, especially when you're invited to meetings on strategy and planning for the next year. That is a really great learning and growth opportunity. And then always be a good teammate. I was always collaborative and shared what was working, shared pictures of my new sets so other people could do it as well. And so in hindsight, that was a really good move because overnight I became not just a peer, but also a boss to my team. And I think that really helped out in that transitional period. So next, now I'm to my current role as Vice President of Health Market and Dietitians, and I kind of get to wear two different hats. So in my Health Market role, I'm responsible for developing strategy, merchandising the department, meeting with vendors, developing sections, events and promotions, and ad writing. So this is a really fun and challenging career that I really, really enjoy. And then last February in 2020, right before COVID hit, we added dietitians to my plate. So we brought the whole group together right before March, and we decided we were going to hold big events and in the stores and gather large groups of people together. And then COVID hit and we had to pivot really quickly. So I learned how amazing my team was and how we were able to quickly reorganize our strategy and how we were going to work that year. And one of the positives out of that situation is we're able to quickly launch a telehealth platform that might have taken a little bit more time had it been non-COVID. So I think that some of the lessons that I have learned and continually learning is surround yourself with an amazing team of smart, hardworking people that really can complement even your weaknesses, because that's been such a strength over this past year, is just working with such an amazing team. And then second, I've learned communication is extremely important. You've got to talk about your successes. You've got to share what's working, and you have to let people know what you're working on and what amazing things your team has accomplished. Even the failures, you got to talk about those too, because they will happen or you're not doing your job right. And if it comes from you, it's even better. A couple of other things I'll add is just always outwork and outprepare everyone. It'll establish your credibility and your expertise, and people will seek you out and want to know your opinion and invite you to be a part of their committees and teams. And then be passionate. Make sure whatever you do, you're passionate about and you love it. And then it never feels like work. I think that's something that's really a part of my favorite thing to do is come to work, because I just love working with nutrition and the health market products, and it just always feels fun. So I'm just going to leave you with a quote from the Hint CEO that I really love. I think that it sums up kind of my career and my path and perfectly. So her quote is, "Don't think about what you can't do. Figure out what you can do and then do it to the best of your ability." So I just love that. I find that really inspirational and sums it up really nicely. So does anyone have any questions for me that I could answer? Or want to share something that they've had success on or heard a good lesson?
Elisa, I'm just going to hop on. So Ellie Wilson has a question of, can you share the leadership book that you got so much from?
What's that?
Ellie asked if you can share the title of the leadership book. that you got so much from?
Oh, that's a good one. It's been a few years. Can I follow up on that? I have to check my Amazon list.
Yeah, for sure. You can shoot me a note and I can take care of it for sure and make sure it happens. Elisa, can you talk a little bit, because I don't think people are aware of this. Can you talk about the size of your total team now, like your scope of responsibility?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've restructured our dietitian program. So now we have 30 dietitians that report directly to me at the office, but they are also still living in their territory. So they didn't have to move. They're strategically placed in some of our biggest markets throughout our 8 states.
And do you talk about health markets? Because do you oversee all the buyers and all the in-store health market managers, or how does that work?
Yes. Yep. So there are 186 health market departments throughout the company. The health market managers directly report to their store directors for immediate supervision, but I communicate to them weekly, and we talk about merchandising and goals and new product launches. And then we also work really closely with category managers in the office who actually go out and physically purchase all the products that we carry in health market.
And, you know, given kind of the whole work at home environment, what advice do you have for retail dietitians trying to get noticed or to kind of show that commitment to the retail? Because you don't just bump into someone in the corporate office right now, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's been definitely a challenge over the year. But I would definitely recommend that you schedule those meetings or find out what the best way to communicate is to your leadership team. I'm a big fan of tying into other departments' promotions because then you're included in those successes. And then people start thinking naturally of how can I get the dietitians on my seafood promotion, or we're selling salmon this month. You know, you guys helped me so much last promotion. I'd love to include you again. And that's a good way to get your name out there and get noticed as well.
Yeah. So Heather has a question that says, in her everyday responsibilities, it isn't always organic to interact with leadership and talk the retail talk regarding sales. Any advice for helping those interactions happen naturally and not seem completely random? Great question, Heather.
Yeah. Yep. So I'd say one of the skill sets I had to learn quickly was memo writing. And that is not something that comes naturally to me because you have to be very concise, bulleted. I also learned that, you know, people are busy. So if you can sum up what you're working on or what you're excited about in a way that they're going to want to listen to and read, I think that that's really important. So if you maybe see, I'll throw out an example. Some of our healthy HMR meals that we've launched haven't gone phenomenally. So if you can kind of pitch it in a way like, hey, dietitians love healthy meals. I think we can help you fix this. And here's what some great ideas I'd love to share with you. Can we jump on a quick Zoom and I can tell you my ideas? And people really respond well to that.
That's awesome. What other questions do you guys have for Elisa? This is your opportunity. I mean, Elisa's a tough woman to get a hold of. Elisa, I don't know if you saw my session this morning, but I put you in my list of top 10 dietitians to talk to. So I'm hoping you don't get flooded in your emails, but you might.
I hope I do. Bring it on. I love talking to people.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I should. Might take me a minute.
Any other questions?
I'm figuring it in too. So if you guys want to message me there.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. So here's, what tips do you have for managing your time to achieve top priorities? That's a great question, Bridget.
That is something I struggle with every day. Totally. You make your checklist and then you might have your wheels spinning when someone's like, hey, can you grab me this? Can you grab me that? I think that you definitely need to have a priority list of what you need to get done by order of timeliness and importance. So I always keep projects I'm working on, my to-do list for each of those projects, and then I kind of filter it in and out of what I really need to get done and accomplish that day.
Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes, right, it's recognizing some things are urgent but not important, and they can suck up a lot of your time. But if they're not really driven against your goals and your priorities, sometimes you have to let those go, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Well, you're getting a lot of kudos in the chat. You know, Phil is saying that he's sure you're going to be one of those retail CEOs one day, Elisa. So.
Doubt it. I'll let someone else take that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us here today. And we appreciate so much your time and your sharing your insights and thoughts. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.